In our first story, management of Accra's major children's hospital or healthcare facility, the Princess Marie-Louise Children's Hospital, say they will increase the number of personnel on night shift to avert the recurrence of the heated confrontation between parents of some patients and some staff of the hospital. There was chaos Thursday night as frustrated parents of sick children vented their anger at management of the facility for neglecting their duties. Our sources at the hospital reveal this is not the first time such confrontations have occurred. Now, parents told Joy News they are often compelled to spend the whole day at the hospital in desperation as they wait for a doctor to attend to their sick children.
We're taking a look at the timetable now, and the view of what happened, we're hopefully going to increase the number of prescribers at night to avert. So we're having a look and reorganizing our timetable, our duty roster to take care of the nights and to avoid such issues happening again. Yesterday evening, I heard that there was somebody came here with a child, and he was seen at around 12:30, and I think asked to do labs and other things. But he claims he had spent so much time here, the waiting time, and he said there was only one prescriber since morning, which was not true, because in the morning we had 5 prescribers in all the consulting rooms. Normally we have most of them during the day, and then in the evening. By that evening we would have cleared most of the patients, so we don't normally have a lot of doctors in the evening. But yesterday we had one prescriber in the consulting room who was attending to the patients. So the nurses told them that was around 7:30 in the night when your reporter came, and even then the nurses had assured the patients to be to be patient, and that the doctor was going to see them.
We've been interacting with some of the mothers who've brought their children here. The issue that keeps coming up is the number of hours that they have to spend here. About 80 of them are outside right now, all waiting to get to the consulting room. What about the issue of personnel for this hospital? Do you have enough personnel?
At the moment, all the rooms, we have about 5 doctors all the consulting rooms have doctors at the moment as we speak this morning. I think normally if taking care of children is not like it's not the same as taking care of adults. The doctors have to take time to examine the children.
Meanwhile, the Greater Accra Regional Health Directorate says it will have to assess the number of outpatients who visit the Princess Marie-Louise Hospital daily in order to ascertain the number of medical staff to assign. The Director of Health, Dr. Charity Sampong, earlier told Joy News' Daniel Dassey that only 3 medical officers are available at the moment to attend to patients.
Currently, we have 4 medical officers, but one of them is on maternity leave. So we have 3 medical officers working there. We also have some specialists working there. But I must confess that I resumed duty about 2 weeks ago in the Greater Accra region. So that's why I said we are calling to the medical superintendent to get the actual number. But I think we must also have about 3 specialists, pediatricians also working there. So
would you say this number is enough? Would you say this number is enough?
Let me say yes and no. Because sitting here right now, that's why we are reviewing this case, because we are looking also into their attendance book, their consulting book, to see on the average daily how many patients come there on daily basis, and then we can make a fair judgment towards it. But let's keep also in mind that the PML is specialized children hospitals. So it means that at the end of the day, in addition to seeing the regular cases, they are definitely going to be seeing lots of referral cases there. So depending on the kind of cases that we report there, we are going to need more hands to be able to ensure that each one that comes gets the quality care.
Now let's stay on health, because one of the patients who was administered with the deadly injection at the New Senchi Health Center in the Eastern region, which has killed 4 persons there, says she is living in fear. Priscilla Kwenu was among about 20 patients who received the injections to treat various skin infections. As you know, the owner of the facility has been remanded into prison custody. Since news broke of the deaths, many, like Priscilla, who had visited the facility, have become apprehensive. There's more in Kwame Yanka's report.
Priscilla Kwenu says she started experiencing injection abscess halfway through the treatment she had gone to the hospital for. 4 others who developed that condition died after their condition deteriorated. According to Priscilla, she's frightened and it's difficult for her.
Injection. We go up and buy and no go Monday any Tuesday. The Tuesday me go buy no. To go send me go Wednesday me catch up and
I was supposed to take my injection from Monday to Wednesday, but after Tuesday, I told my brother that I feel pains on my buttocks, so I would rather go on Thursday. My mother told me when I came back that someone who went for the same injection is experiencing a buttock swell. I became afraid, but I'm using kerosene to treat it.
I don't ever go to me because me and who saw coming, so the name is slow. It is a nipple no, and then I make me come across slow. This is a piano coming about one answer to me, and who chimney.
Priscilla's aunt, Sewa Kotobuabin, says application of kerosene on the swollen part may have saved her niece's life.
And I asked why, what really happened? And she told me that the friend too went for injection at Senchi, and that the buttocks had gotten swollen, and that they've taken her to the theater about 3 times. And I said, is it abscess or what? Then she told me she didn't even know what was wrong. So immediately I heard that, I screamed and called Priscilla and I said, Priscilla, come and listen. You are left with 1 injection. So I stopped her. I stopped her from going and told her to buy kerosene and apply the kerosene on it, because an auntie of mine told me about this, that when you get abscess, you can use a kerosene, yes. So she applied the kerosene on it. That day, she applied the kerosene on it about 5 times, but whilst applying to, I told her that no, she's applying the kerosene. It is the blood of Jesus that she's applying, and that it will eradicate all the poison from her body.
One of the injection victims still on admission at the VRA hospital at Akosombo is Mary Agboji. Her friend Victoria Chite says God's grace has kept Mary alive. Doctors say Mary is recovering and will soon be discharged.
Sister Mary is a customer to my friend. I told her that Sister Mary is experiencing a buttock swell after going for the same injection, and she advised her to stop. As for now, Sister Mary is still alive by the grace of God.
Sister Mary
Kwame Yanka's report for Joy News.
You're still watching Joy News Prime. Still ahead, the Inter-Party Coalition for National Sovereignty lashes out at President Akufo-Addo for what it describes as his poor handling of the national address in response to widespread concerns over the controversial US-Ghana military cooperation agreement.
And just to add about the leaks that the president was talking about, I feel very disappointed from president when he talks that way, because he served in parliament. I met him in parliament, and he's been in parliament for 12 years before he left, and he knows the rules of the house. Parliament does not sit on Monday. Colleagues in the media, remember.
We have details after this break. Stay tuned. You're welcome back. Now, the Inter-Party Coalition for National Sovereignty has lashed out at President Akufo-Addo for what it describes as his poor handling of an address to the nation in response to widespread concerns over the controversial U.S.-Ghana military cooperation agreement. The president, as you know, has denied reports a U.S. military base will be built in Ghana as part of the agreement. Listen to him as he took a swipe at the minority and his political opponents for manipulating discussions on the military agreement.
It is clear to me that if the people of Ghana knew the conditions under which foreign embassies and our friendly international institutions operate in Ghana, nobody would have been surprised that a defense cooperation agreement would make such provisions. Such knowledge would have spared many citizens the genuine anxiety and concern they have felt about the agreement. It is my firm belief that the case for openness and transparency in our governance has been clearly demonstrated, and the argument conclusively settled by these events. But we have to take issue with the frontline politicians who have sought to mislead the people in this blatant manner, and those who, for mischievous purposes, leaked the document destined for the scrutiny of Parliament prematurely to a section of the media, who then went on to describe it as a secret document. How could a document intended for the consideration of Parliament be described as a secret document?
Well, the Inter-Party Coalition for National Sovereignty, led by the Ghana First Freedom Movement, has been up in arms over what it says is the NPP government's attempt to sell Ghana's sovereignty for cheap. They've been addressing a news conference in Accra. There's more in this report.
The coalition's news conference on Friday comes after the president tagged those opposed to the agreement as naysayers and hypocrites. General Secretary of the NDC, Johnson Esiedun-Katia, is of the view that the agreement was not properly laid before Parliament, and as such, a ratification of the agreement cannot reflect the will of the people's representatives. Mr. Esiedun-Katia is demanding a withdrawal or a renegotiation of the agreement.
We are saying that this agreement does not represent the interests of Ghana, and so we as Ghanaians will fight it, and that is why we are fighting it. So approval or no approval, we will continue fighting it, but we still have issue with what they call approval, and we have said so that the so-called exercise that was done in Parliament, in our view, has been an exercise in futility. It doesn't amount to ratification as demanded by Article 75 of the Constitution, because Article 75 says that the President must execute an agreement. Then the agreement must be brought to Parliament for ratification. The document before Parliament had not been executed, so in our view, it was not properly before Parliament. Okay? So if they say you must die before you are buried, and somebody comes trying to bury you alive, it's a different ball game altogether.
Minority Chief Whip Mutaka Mubarak refuted government's claim that the minority had leaked the document before it was laid before Parliament.
Just to add about the leaks that the president was talking about, I feel very disappointed from President when he talks that way, because he served in Parliament. I met him in Parliament, and he's been in Parliament for 12 years before he left. And he knows the rules of the House. Parliament does not sit on Monday. Colleagues in the media, remember, the paper was laid in Parliament on 20th March, which was a Tuesday. And this was done on Tuesday afternoon. By Monday evening, these things were being discussed in the media. So, in fairness, let's put the issue of whether one document is in Parliament, it can be discussed in public and other things. In principle, how can a reasonable person blame Parliament for the leak? Because the paper was only laid on Tuesday. Meanwhile, this one was being discussed on Monday. I heard at least on one of the network, Joy FM, Monday evening, they were discussing it. So how could anybody say that it was leaked after it was laid on Tuesday?
Let's get on the lines and do some more analysis on the President's address. We are joined by Senior Lecturer at the Political Science Department of the University of Ghana, Professor Ransford Jampo. Many thanks for your time, sir.
Hi, my pleasure.
Now, reactions to the President's address have been generally not been positive. In fact, when we spoke to the Minority Leader Haruna Idrisu yesterday, he said the President missed an opportunity when he failed to provide details of the new agreement so the public can ascertain the difference between that and the one that was signed in 2015. You agree?
Well, thanks for the opportunity. I think I do not want to go with the position of the minority. I just want to state my own position, my own views on the issue, because of the kind of hypocrisy that shrouds and surrounds the activities of politicians in our part of the world. And so oftentimes, even if my position is in tandem with that of the majority or the minority, I do not want to stick. I just want to state my position as it is without associating myself with any of the sides. The point must be made that I was quite elated when I heard that the President was going to speak to the issue. Indeed, I had spoken to a few people asking them that those who are closer to the corridors of power, that it should be possible for the President to speak to the issues, to lay the controversies to rest. And so I was quite happy when I heard that this was going to happen. And I was again happy that the President was essentially able to assure Ghanaians that their fears should be allayed. He sought to tell Ghanaians that he's not sold the country and that he's not doing anything to compromise our security. And I think these were the kinds of things that the good people of Ghana were looking forward to hearing. Except that I thought the tone and the diction that he used, it's good, to expose hypocrisy. And like I said, sometimes hypocrites can be so annoying, and if you don't take time as a father of the nation, you want to respond to them, you may also end up being overly emotional and missing the issues, and then also tabling other controversial issues that would not necessarily put the issues that must be laid to rest. And so I didn't like the tone and the diction, and at one point in time it looked as if he spent much time trying to respond to the opposition, and at another point in time also trying to insinuate that some section of the Ghanaian citizenry were anti-American and they had expressed anti-American sentiment. I thought that's where the low sides of the speech. But generally, to the extent that he was able to assure me, for instance, that he's not doing anything to compromise on our security and all that, I think that should be it. And then again, I think that he could have used the opportunity to do two things. First of all, tell Ghanaians about the differences, the slight differences. The agreements are similar, but they are not the same. So the slight differences between the current one that has been signed and then the previous ones. And then to justify or try to hazard or proffer explanations regarding the differences. And then he should have also used the opportunity to make his position known to Ghanaians about the intransigent partisan politics that has plagued our nation. You would realize that it was the conduct of our parliament, in discussing this agreement itself wasn't the best. Typical of them, this particular agreement that one would have expected that they would have looked at it from a purely objective and nationalistic point of view. They looked at it with partisan lenses, and so once again the opposition had its say, the majority had its way. But I thought the idea of sending an unsigned document to Parliament was to elicit inputs from them. Unfortunately, this didn't happen, and so it sacrificed the beauty of sending
Pastor
the
Jambo,
voters. Hello.
Yes, there are those who have, recommended that, particularly the minority, that the president or the government returns the document to the House for it to be debated again, changes made, and for consensus to be had, so that it can be implemented without the without all the hullabaloo that it has been associated or characterized, that has characterized. Do you share that position?
Well, if we want to build consensus, and if we mean well as a democracy, and if we really want Parliament to take a look at the document critically in a manner that satisfies the tenets of substantive democracy, then I'll agree with them. But I don't know whether it is late or it isn't. But I think we missed the opportunity to put, unite and to close our ranks as a nation. It had polarized us, and I was expecting that around the time that we witnessed this, the executive would have simply recalled the agreement and say that, look, I'm recalling it in the meantime. And then you do behind the scenes consultation with the minority to seek their inputs and to soften their stance and all that. This doesn't happen. I don't know whether it's too late. If it's not too late, I go for that kind of suggestion that it should be possible for us to, if you speak to both across the political divide, they will tell you that there are certain provisions or contents of the agreement that they don't like. And so if both sides believe that there are certain contents and portions that they don't like, and if the agreement could not be tampered with the comments and suggestions of even the Attorney General and members of the minority, and clearly there are people saying that there are certain portions of the agreement that they do that, then I think it didn't advance our interest as a nation, rushing through it and signing it. And so if it is possible, let us do the right thing.
Thanks for your time. That is a senior lecturer at the Political Science Department of the University of Ghana, Professor Ransford Jampo there. You're watching Joy News Prime. Still ahead, we have business, and Vice President gives the Ghana Revenue Authority a deadline to develop a mobile app payment platform to make it more convenient for taxpayers as the Revenue Collection Authority launches Tax and Good Governance Week. And later in the bulletin, Liberia's George Weah appeals to the government of Ghana to help Liberia progress and succeed.
I'm a big brother, and I hope that you will help Liberia to succeed.
Details after this break.
Hello, good evening to you. Time now for business. Vice President Dr. Mahamudu Bawumia has charged the Ghana Revenue Authority to, as a matter of urgency, develop a mobile app for citizens to use as a convenient way to file their tax returns. According to him, this will enhance voluntary tax payments among Ghanaians, as well as helping to reduce the cost in mobilizing funds. Speaking at the launch of the Tax and Good Governance Week in Accra, the Vice President gave the Commissioner General of the GRA up to the end of April next year to ensure that this directive is implemented.
The Ghana Revenue Authority is enhancing its revenue mobilization agenda through the introduction of many tax measures, including the enforcement of the Tax Identification Number Law, as well as other policies geared towards helping the authority to meet revenue targets for the year. In a keynote address at the launch of the Tax and Good Governance Week in Accra, Vice President charged the Commissioner General of the GRA to develop a mobile application to make it easier for the public to pay their taxes by the end of April next year.
I would like to challenge you that by the time we get to next year, where we have to file our taxes by the end of April 30th, we want to see a mobile app which we can have on our phones and be able to file our taxes just on our mobile phones and pay them on our mobile apps without having to step into any office. And this is a challenge I'm setting for you to meet by the end of April next year so that we can get this done. I know you can meet it. I wish to emphasize that by complying and honoring our civic obligation to the state, citizens can better hold government and accountable and bring socioeconomic development to our communities.
The Vice President, accompanied by the Finance Minister Ken Ofori-Atta, Senior Minister Yaa Osafo-Maafo and other cabinet ministers, used the opportunity to file their tax returns. He reiterated the directive by the President for all ministers and government appointees to file their returns before the April 30th deadline.
This campaign is therefore meant to remind and educate all categories of persons on this civic requirement and encourage the general public to visit any of the offices of the Ghana Revenue Authority across the country and file their tax returns if they haven't already done so before the end of April 2018. The President, His Excellency Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo, has directed that to set good examples, all ministers of state, government appointees and public officials should ensure that they file their tax returns before the deadline of April 30th, 2018. During this program, GRA will mount tax clinics at specific places to assist citizens with filing of their tax returns as well as tax-related matters.
On his part, Commissioner of the GRA Emmanuel Kofi explained the motive behind the program. He noted that one of the key means of ensuring voluntary compliance is to have a well-informed taxpayer population, hence the decision for the Tax and Good Governance Week celebration.
This program is geared towards encouraging filing of annual tax returns and ultimately increasing the level of voluntary compliance among the tax-paying public. The week-long program is on the theme, Filing Your Tax Returns, Your Civic Responsibility.
And in the Central Region, Regional Minister Kwamina Duncan has urged the inhabitants of the region to file their tax returns and honor their tax obligations to give true meaning to government's vision of Ghana beyond aid. According to him, donor partners are fatigued and may not be willing to provide funding to support government's activities. He noted it behoves the citizenry to mobilize enough revenue to help sustain the country's development.
According to the Regional Minister Kwamina Duncan, revenue mobilization in the country has not been able to keep up with the demands of the people for development. The deficit, he says, has to be bridged through the payment of taxes to reduce the reliance on donor funding and government borrowing.
We can generate enough to do the roads. We can generate enough to build the schools, the hospitals, to do the pipe, to get it to people who need it. As we move to Ghana beyond aid, it is imperative for us to be able to raise enough revenue domestically. It is important to know that over the years, revenue mobilization in this country has not kept pace with the ever-growing demands of citizens for development projects and better services from government. Revenues have not been able to keep up with these demands, thus creating a deficit which has to be bridged through government borrowing or through support from donor partners. Ghana now enjoys few concessional loans and support from development partners keeps dwindling.
The regional director of the GRA, George Amankwa Boateng, is of the belief that continuous education and sensitization would help the people understand the essence of the payment of taxes.
Because as you know, it is taxes we depend on for development. Without taxes, development will be stifled. Especially in the informal, the formal sector is not very difficult because your pay is deducted at source, so you have no choice. But the informal sector, they are not really ready to come on board so that we can get the much needed revenue. And as the president keeps saying, the donor partners are fatigued already. They are tired. The donor support is dwindling by the day. So it will come a time it will stop and we will have to fend for ourselves. They will be left stranded. That shouldn't happen.
The theme for the week, filing your tax returns, your civic responsibilities, according to the regional boss of the GRA, is an invitation to all Ghanaians to be a part of government vision of Ghana beyond aid. The regional minister, his deputy, and other persons all filed their tax returns after the program. Richard Kwejonyako, Joy News, Cape Coast.
Now, Finance Minister Ken Ofori-Atta has ruled out abandoning talks with the Chinese government over funding for One District, One Factory initiative. This follows concerns by coordinator of the initiative, Gifty Ohini Kredu, that they could abandon negotiations for the $2 billion loan because they are struggling to agree on key disbursement terms with some Chinese banks. He spoke with George Riafi.
You know, one of the significant aspects of it was linked to the bauxite project. I think 2 weeks ago, Sino-Shaw was here, and a lot of negotiations have gone on to trigger that. So we'll get it done. You just have to make sure that, you know, in the end, when you are dotting your I's and crossing your T's, it's in the interest of the country. I mean, for us, clearly with a four-year regime or term, we need to begin, you know, some hard infrastructure work this year, and we are looking forward to do.
Coming has not been abandoned.
No, it can't be abandoned. You know, I mean, it's important that we do. I mean, there has to be infrastructure work being done, and that's why he went, and that's what we'll continue.
Is it about just ensuring value for money or crossing the T's and dotting the I's process, and that's why
crossing the T's, making sure. I don't know. I mean, it's you know, we've gone into $30 billion of accumulated debt, and I think, you know, when you are doing these things, one is just a little cautious to make sure that we get the best deal.
The Asante-Hene Otumfuo II is advocating enhanced financial and logistic support for private entrepreneurs to help grow the national economy. He says borrowing at high cost from financial institutions is unsustainable for the building of strong private sector to be able to create more jobs. Otumfuo II was speaking during a courtesy call on him by the Minister for Business Development, Mohammed Awal, at the Menchia Palace in Kumasi. Nana Asensu Mensah has more in this report.
The Asante-Hene is of the view advancing loans under various government schemes to the youth without monitoring and mentorship exposes them to risk. He cites the high rate of non-performing loans in the financial sector as some of the effects of using money to attract people into entrepreneurship. Otumfuo believes focusing on existing businesses to thrive is the way to go.
Put the manners ya ready years so you bedi. It is can no see a day come out Mrante and Mabade over there. Now so dear parnage so any scanners what they quiet you be there.
Government should supply the youth with inputs and equipment to facilitate a conducive environment for these young entrepreneurs to work instead of giving them soft loans.
That's all in business. Many thanks for your company. My name is Emmanuel Apwachi. Enjoy the weekend.
Now, farmers are asking government to immediately pass the Plant Breeders Bill into law to accelerate the country's development. Work on the bill, which was laid in Parliament in 2013, was suspended on the directive of the former Speaker Edward Doe Ajaho following widespread agitations by some civil society groups at a stakeholder forum in Accra organized by the Open Forum on Agricultural Biotechnology. The farmers noted the bill, when passed, will increase investments in the sector. Ifwa Evans Chinnery has more.
The bill is expected to give scientists and plant breeders the right to earn royalties on the varieties they develop. This, its promoters hope, will encourage more organizations and companies to invest in the production of new varieties which will enhance productivity and make farmers better off. Farmers are hopeful good returns will be seen if the plant breeders law is passed.
If the plant breeders bill, as we heard from the presenters, is coming to make improved seeds available to farmers, we welcome it. And from the onset, that has always been our position. We don't have any problem with it. However, there is two particular clauses in the bill that we were concerned about, and the reason of which we sent a petition to Parliament. If you look at clause 23, it said that the plant breeders' rights shall not be subjected to any laws in Ghana. In other words, cannot be regulated by any laws in Ghana. So we are thinking that that component of the bill need to be looked at. Breeding seeds entails a huge cost, and you cannot just do it and just leave people. For several years, government has been investing in the breeding seeds in this country. For example, the Opatapa seed that has, like they said today, Dr. Hans Dapa said today that it was bred in Ghana, but it has found its way into other African countries. We couldn't get any royalties from it. And this is the time that the parliamentarians should actually consider it, so that it shouldn't hang, so that over the years, farmers have also been very innovative, coming out with materials, and this is the time that they could also help work with research officers, so that they can be able to document the processes, so that they can stand the test of time.
Chairman of Parliament's Agri Committee, Kwame Asafo-Adjei, assured government will work towards reintroducing the bill to the House for approval.
Looking at the country as an agrarian country, looking at the size of the climate change, among others, there's need for all of us to come forcefully and make sure that the plant breeders bill is passed. But there are other areas which have concern. The small farmers are worried. They are worried that the big time multinationals are going to control the seed. And when they do that, the small farmers will lose their the origin of, or their own origin of their own seed, because they want to keep their own seed.
Ifo Evans Chimri for Joy News.
Now, the Ministry of Agriculture has disclosed to Joy News it will introduce natural predators into farms across the country which have been ravaged by the fall armyworm. This forms part of a long-term plan to eradicate the pest from the farms. It comes at the back of concerns by some farmers in the Ashanti region that the pests have returned to their farms, despite assurances by government that it has dealt with the problem. Officials of the ministry explain the natural predators will consume the eggs of the pest so that it does not hatch. Kwesi Koboy is a technical advisor at the Ministry of Agriculture. He spoke earlier on Joy News today.
The Ministerial Committee, Ghana has been deemed to be the country most responsive in addressing the fall armyworm menace within our sub-region. So our strategy, we developed 3 phases of strategy. The short term is like what they're doing: awareness creation, sensitization, training people to detect it, having chemicals in stock. Last year we used a bit of synthetic chemical. We've now shifted more to bio, because these things make the pests don't get too resistant to bio-rational chemicals. The medium long-term strategy is that we are also now looking at introducing what I call it natural predators or parasitoids, and that is using more biological control to control them. In fact, 2 weeks ago, the Deputy Minister responsible for annual crops was in Brazil with some of our technical colleagues to understand, because Brazil has gone through this for the last 40 years, and they have now managed to control and reduce its impact to very little, and it's quite insignificant.
Okay.
You're welcome back. Now, former President John Mahama has arrived in the Upper West Regional Capital, WA, in anticipation of the opposition NDC's unity walk on Saturday. John Mahama told chiefs and the people who welcomed him that the walk was to boost the morale of party supporters whose spirits are down following the NDC's devastating defeat 2 years ago.
Tomorrow we're going to do a walk. It is to lift the morale and spirits of our people. After we lost the election, it's not easy to lose an election. You know, the people's spirits are down, and so you need to do something to raise their spirits. The elections are not a do or die affair. You win some, you lose some. We have lost before, we have won before, and so we shouldn't let it depress our spirits. What we need to do is to reorganize the party and put it in a shape where it can stand elections again come 2020. And so we are organizing the branches. We're going to hold branch elections this month. And then after that, we're going to hold constituency elections. We're going to hold regional elections, national elections, and then eventually we'll hold the election to select our flag bearer, all by the end of this year.
Upper West Region correspondent Rafiq Salam joined some supporters to welcome Mr. Mahama at the Wa Airport. He joins me on the line. Rafiq, the former president has been engaged in some activities since he arrived in the region. Bring us up to speed on that.
He has been paying courtesy calls on some opinion, religious leaders, and also traditional rulers in the Wa municipality. His first point of call was at the palace of the Wana, overlord of the Wala Kingdom, now putting to the people the fourth. He told him of his mission, was to deal with tomorrow's unity walk. From there, he moved to Yerina, and he met the Yerina at in the morning, and then moved to the regional chief Imam Sheikh Abdul Qadir. So he finally ended this tour of the village at the Ahmadiyya Muslim Mission, where he met some elders of the Ahmadiyya community.
And Rafiq, are there any notable executives of the party accompanying the former president?
Big stalwart of the party, General Asidun Ketia, who happens to be the General Secretary of the party, accompanied him. The former Chief of Staff, Julius Zebra, is also around, and some former government functionaries from the Upper West Region are also leading. There's also some national executives of the party were accompanying former President Mahama on the trip.
What about members of parliament from the Upper West region? Are they also participating? Tell us about that.
The work is tomorrow, and some of them are yet to arrive. But I can tell you that I saw the Yoruba MP, Honorable Dr. Francis Bawana Dakura. He was there, and then other MPs were around.
All right, many thanks. Rafiq Salam is our Upper West regional correspondent. Liberia's President George Oponvia has extended a passionate appeal to the government of Ghana to help Liberia progress and succeed. According to him, Ghana is a case study his government is looking up to because Liberia cannot boast of its current status without mentioning Ghana. The Liberian president made this known on Friday when he paid a courtesy call on President Akufo-Addo at the Jubilee House as part of a two-day visit to Ghana to discuss ways of strengthening the bilateral relationships that exist between the two countries.
Ghana is a case study, and you are a case study. But we are glad. Ghana is my home, and we are here not to just come and see you, but we came to reassure you that our relationship that we have will be sustained and will be more strengthened. I'm young, I agree, but you are my big brother, and I hope that you will help Liberia to succeed. Liberia came a long way, and without Ghana, we would not be standing here today. Ghana hosted us, and today we can never repay. We just have to continue to make sure that our people continue to marry, have children, move around our economic and our borders for them to be happy.
President Akufo-Addo, on his part, described President George Weah as the symbol of progress Liberia is making. He pledged his support for Liberia and urged other heads of the West African region to deepen the contacts and friendship between them so as to address the challenges they face in the 21st century.
Many of you know that this very famous man spent a lot of his last few years here in Ghana. And so I'd like to claim him as one of our own who has come back. He is a symbol of the progress that Liberia is making after the trauma of the Civil War. One of the things that I've discovered about him was his honesty and also his commitment to the welfare of his people. The world is going through some difficult moments. All kinds of new arrangements are appearing, and we here in the West African region must continue to deepen the contacts, the links, the friendships between us in West Africa, so that the challenges of the 21st century, the challenges of rapid economic growth, inclusive economic growth, it makes it possible for all our peoples to be part of the process of development, that we can successfully meet those challenges.
The Ghana Highways Authority has commenced work to remove what road users say are nuisance roundabouts on the Kumasi-Ejisu Road. Alternative routes are being created for traffic flow ahead of closure of the highway actual reconstruction to begin by the end of this month. Roads and Highways Minister Akwesi Amakwata last year ordered the clearing of the structures. It was in response to an appeal by the Ashanti Regional Minister Simon Osei-Mensah. Nana Yaojima reports.
The roundabouts are part of design of 394 billion Ghana Cedi Danish government funded reconstruction of the 46-kilometer Kumasi-Konongo Road project in 2004. Besides heavy vehicular congestion resulting in loss of man-hours, what is technically known as traffic islands have been blamed for persistent accidents around them. Motorists have called for their removal ever since.
And the circular provision, the radius or circumference, is necessary to facilitate all the turning movements, U-turn movements and then left turn movements, whether it's a huge vehicle or a small one. That is why we are still keeping that movement, but it is not going to be the regular roundabout where everybody going straight still has to turn. That's very inconvenient for the heavy group of vehicles. So that will be completely eliminated for safety and for good flow.
All community diversion routes are almost done except one delayed by construction of a bridge. Police and Traffic Highway Director Christian Inti says the Yasantoa statue in the middle of a roundabout at Ejuso will be maintained.
Ejuso roundabout, we are going to keep the statue, the Yasantoa statue. That is not going to be tampered with. We are going to have discussion with the traditional leaders, the chiefs, then whatever they need to do, but we are assuring them that we are not going to tamper with the statue because it's a legacy. It's a very important statue for the people of Ashanti region, more particularly the Joso municipality.
Let's stay in the Ashanti region because residents of Fuase in the Echuma-Kwanwoma district say they have high expectations of an independent probe into an alleged police shooting which resulted in some casualties. 4 people have died and several others paralyzed following last February's incident during a protest over relocation of the district capital from Fuase to Twedie. A 3-member committee was inaugurated on Wednesday to investigate the incident after residents objected to a police inquiry on grounds of conflict of interest. Naya Aljima has more in the following report.
The independent probe was recommended by the Ashanti Regional Security Council. Regional Minister Simon Osei-Mensah explains.
We directed the police to submit a report on that to us. But later, some members from the Fuasi committee objected to that, saying they don't trust the report from the police service because they think the police service is an interested party and they cannot investigate themselves and submit a report on themselves. We've accepted this and a 3-member committee has been put in place.
The committee comprises Chief State Attorney Edward Ajimandiodu and former Bishop of the Methodist Church in Kumasi, Right Reverend Nuben Abubakar. Acting Regional Coordinating Director Emilia Boche is Secretary. They will have to establish the corporate or corporates of the gunshot and make recommendations. They have 1 month to submit a report. Mr. Hossein Mensah assures the report of the committee will be followed to the latter.
All that we are pleading with all stakeholders in this process that they should exercise patience and restraint and allow the process to go on smoothly without any hindrance or without any crisis occurring again. We appeal to everybody to help the process, to help the committee so that the committee can come out with an objective and realistic report.
Meanwhile, residents of Fuansi say they are yet to receive an official statement from the Regional Coordinating Council on the 3-member panel. They are nonetheless expecting justice to be served, as Assemblyman echoes. Government has the right to establish such a committee, and if they have, then they should let us know about it so we can cooperate. What we want is justice to be served. Some of our leaders see the case as a simple one, but it is not. It has security implications and should be treated as such. The matter is even in court now. What we want now is justice to be served. Nana Ajima reporting.
Government says it is committed to adhering to the United Nations voluntary guidelines on sustainable fishing. Deputy Minister for Fisheries and Aquaculture Development, Francis Kingsley Atukujo, tells Joy News an ongoing review of the Fisheries Act 2002 will incorporate the principles which seek to protect fisheries resources for future generations. He was speaking on the sidelines of a stakeholder forum on how Ghana can legally adopt the international guidelines in order to responsibly manage use of the country's land and sea. Adelaide Arthur reports.
The Committee on World Food Security of the United Nations endorsed the guidelines on responsible management of land, forest and fisheries resources in 2002 with the aim of making the world food secure. Though these guidelines are voluntary, countries are expected to incorporate them into laws to ensure that exploitation of land and sea resources is done in a sustainable manner. This is why NGOs, Environmental Justice Foundation and Hen Puano, who are implementing the EU-funded Farjumankodu project, brought together stakeholders in the fisheries sector to deliberate on how these international guidelines could be applied to improve fishing activities. The principles, for instance, encourage protection of women's rights and empowerment, elimination of forced labor, and local participation in the management of fisheries resources.
All over the world, it is being shown by evidence collected on the ground that wherever you increase the ownership and participation of local communities in the management of the natural resources, you are able to get a better yield, you are able to get sustainable development of the resource, and you're able to get best returns from it. Because once the local communities own the process and they are part of the decision-making process, they wouldn't flout the law. They would rather work with the state to protect the law.
The Ministry of Fisheries and Aquaculture Development is pleased with a new co-management policy which is expected to empower local leaders to enforce laws on sustainable fishing. According to Deputy Minister for Fisheries and Aquaculture Development, Francis Kingsley Atukujo, the policy is in line with the UN's guiding principles. He adds that the Fisheries Act, which is currently under review, will align with the international guidelines in order to protect fish for present and future generations.
We want FAO to look at the Fisheries Act vis-a-vis the VGGT and see how these two align. We want to make sure that international agreements on us, like the post-state measure, stock assessment and all those things, are factored into the Act. And that is why the VGT education at this time is quite important, because we don't want to have a document where after 5 years we are coming back to review. we want to ensure that if these are the new guidelines, then they should be in our document. We should be able to capture this.
Statistics show that 10% of the country's population depends on the fisheries sector, even though fish stock continues to decline. Projects like Farjuman Kodo, however, are meant to revive fishing in the country.
The main topics the project is working on is, first one, the fight against illegal fishing and supporting community involvement in this monitoring, control and surveillance. The second component, and that's what the one we are here today about, is to support co-management and empowerment of small-scale fishermen and small-scale fishmonger.
Such projects, according to stakeholders, will yield better results if government improves upon how the fisheries sector is managed. Adelaide Arthur, Joy News, Accra.
Now, residents of Etimatim, Mase, are warning a bridge linking the area is a death trap that needs immediate attention. The bridge, which is always overtopped by ravaging flood anytime it rains, has suffered some extensive damage. Joy News' Mohammed Nuruddin did a spot check on the actual state of the bridge that links communities in the Kwabre East municipality of the Ashanti region. Here's his report.
Cracks are seen all over.
The gata is a worry to us. Recently, a car had an accident and people got injured.
In fact, I say,
this road has really helped us a lot with a huge traffic at Egna and recent clash. Vehicles plied here. So if this road is cut off, it will have an impact on us. We are appealing to the government to come to our aid.
It is one case one to Kwayuan, Kwase Mese, MYA, it is by so one will be to me and Menumi, on Baba Boy or Hoam, if he says another boy, near to Mundia, MYA cry.
The aftermath of floods a few days ago has been devastating. Residents are calling for complete reconstruction of the bridge. The bridge is slowly turning into a death trap, exposing users to dangers, especially as the rains intensify. Several appeals to government officials have yielded no positive result.
Three
people died here as a result of the poor nature of the bridge. When it is raining, one fears to use the road.
Mahmoud Mohammed Nuruddin reporting.
Now, the leadership of the Tampurma communities in the North Gonja district of the Northern region has expressed commitments to cooperate with the Gonja Traditional Council and the Northern Region Security Council to help resolve the bloody chieftaincy dispute that ensued between the two. 2 people died while dozens of houses were torched, rendering hundreds of residents homeless in Disa and several other communities. Hashmin Mohammed sent in the following report.
The bloody chieftaincy dispute earlier this year resulted in the death of 2 persons and the burning of several houses and properties in some communities in the Tampurma areas. The confrontations between the Gonjas and the Tampuramas, according to police report, followed an alleged refusal by some Tampuramas to allow a group of Fulani herdsmen living in the area to pay royalties to the paramount chief of Wasipe traditional area with cattle. It was reported that the group of Tampulamas, led by one Mahamadu Musa, a native of Salugu, who carried himself as the paramount chief of the Tampulamas, launched a violent attack on the emissaries sent by the Wasipura to collect the royalties, which received a reprisal from some Gunjas from Daboya and Damongo. At a meeting to help find lasting solutions to the conflict, spokesperson of the leadership of the Tampulamas, Harry Buvak Loriba, said so far the Tampulamas do not have legitimate paramount chief, but they are under the care of the Wasipura.
Leadership noted with utmost concerns that the activities of the said Mahamadu Musa and his close associates if not checked out with immediacy, could destroy the healthy relationship between the Waspe Traditional Council and the Tampilmes. Unity and development are the ultimate concerns of the leadership of the Tampilmes, and not fomenting troubles to destabilize the area.
He also added that there are plans to enskin a new chief for them legitimately. A representative of the Wasipra, Peter Awusi Yakubu, called on the two factions to bury their differences and give peace a chance. Hashmin Mohammed reports.
A quick recap of the headlines now. And management of the Princess Marie-Louise Children's Hospital say it will increase the number of personnel on night shift to avert the reoccurrence of the heated confrontation between patients and staff of the hospital. Some surviving patients of the New Saint-Chi Health facility still apprehensive following the death of 4 people who also received injections from the facility. The Inter-Party Coalition for National Sovereignty lashes out at President Akufo-Addo for what it describes as his poor handling of the national address in response to widespread concerns over the controversial US-Ghana military cooperation agreement. In business, Vice President gives GRA deadline to develop a mobile app payment platform to make it more convenient to pay taxes as the Revenue Collection Authority launches Tax and Good Governance Week.